Tictail is doing for e-commerce what Tumblr did for blogging. It's a fantastic Swedish startup, and we'll be talking to Chief Executive Carl Walderkranz today. Welcome to Tech Sessions. I'm with Carl Walderkranz, who is Chief Executive of Tictail. Tell us what Tictail does, Carl.
Well, in a very easy way, Tictail is the easiest way to create a beautiful online store for free on the web today. Essentially, we wanted to democratize selling online, and rather than adding technology to the equation, removing technology from the equation, really removing all things called like e-commerce or SEO or SEM, and make it available to a mainstream, to the mom and pops of this world.
Yeah, when I first went onto the site, I think I felt like it felt like Tumblr or something. It was very, very easy to use, but saying that you're democratizing it is a very poetic way of saying it, but effectively a lot of e-commerce sites were just really ugly and hard to use. That's basically what you were trying to disrupt?
Yeah, I think that's interesting, right? Because in the consumer space of the internet today, we've come so far. I mean, I can have a video conversation on an iPad on an airplane, like 10,000 meters above ground. It's just crazy. But at the same time, in the business-to-business space, there's so many things just ripe for disruption, where the business models, the user interactions, they just haven't progressed in the same way as the consumer space. And e-commerce is one of those things.
And have you found there's an appetite for the tool that you're building?
Yeah, definitely. We launched, a little more than a year ago now, in May last year. And it's been a fantastic first year. We're now powering more than 18,000 stores. We're growing, by the week. And it's just amazing to see this new community coming up from nowhere.
So how did you identify this need? How did Tictail get started?
So I was working at an agency pretty much directly after high school. Me and one of the co-founders of Tictail, we went on to start a digital agency. We did design for tech companies. We started doing some work. It was slow in the beginning, but we sort of had our break when we started to work with another Swedish startup.
Oh, I wonder who that is.
Yes. There were 12 people back then. It was a company called Spotify, and they were just about to launch. And it was one of those mind-blowing moments to see that service for the first time. We kind of became their agency, and as they grew, we grew. And after a few years, our small design studio was acquired by a bigger agency, one of Sweden's biggest design agencies, Identity Works. And spending time there, I get the chance to work more and more with e-commerce. And as a designer, I was working as an art director. It was probably the most exciting space to be in, because it was like the one point where design and business converge perfectly. You know, like in advertising, normally I'd have like a message and an action, and they'd be disconnected. Like buy shoes, and customers would have to go into a store and buy those shoes. But for e-commerce, like the better design I did, the better the interactions were, the better the business result would be. So it was extremely inspiring to me to work with all of these e-commerce projects, but always to choose the platform was just a mess and a like tiresome process. And that got me into thinking, like, this must be done better. This could be done better. This is a space I want to work in, and this is an opportunity I think is really, really big.
It's interesting that it was Spotify that supported you in the early stages of your career. Stockholm is a small, quite intimate cluster of startups, but e-commerce is a real strength there. So tell us a bit about the ecosystem there and who's doing really well.
Well, of course. I mean, I think Stockholm and Sweden in general is quite interesting in the way that we're such a small city, such a small country, but we're actually doing quite well in terms of exports of services. And it goes all the way down to fashion, which is also online sales, like H&M and emerging companies like Acne. We have IKEA, obviously, which everyone
Tiny
knows.
little startup.
Yeah, the tiny little startup IKEA. And then we now have Spotify. Klarna is doing really well, and it's extremely exciting to be able to follow them.
Yeah, Klarna's a really powerful mobile payment tool. Yes, we've been looking at that.
And Klarna is also a company we're partnering with for payments in our space, with Tictail.
Which makes sense.
Which makes sense. And also, in fact, we shared an office with Wrap and iSettle. And iSettle, I could see that you use here in the coffee shop to receive payments on your mobile phone. And it's an interesting story. Actually, when Tictail was started, we were extremely bootstrapped. We had no money whatsoever. And one of the biggest challenges back then was like, where will we sit? What will be our office? And we met up with this tiny company was just starting in Sweden called Wrap. And what they're essentially doing is they're making gift cards digital. And they were just about to launch, and we traded 1 year free office space for their logotype and brand identity. And that made us sit with Wrap and iSettle, which I think are the sort of three new, young, growing companies that are all in the e-commerce space in different ways.
And why e-commerce in Stockholm in particular? Was it just that one of you started getting traction and the others were kind of supported by that? What was the dynamic there?
Well, I think one of the interesting things about Sweden as an export market is that a big part of our international success lies in that we're too small of a market to sustain ourselves. So when you start a company in Sweden, you automatically think global, you think international from day one. And I think that's also what's so attractive about e-commerce, because by its very nature, it is international. It's one of the things that makes the world a smaller place in the way that it connects countries with each other.
So when you start a company, you have a small potential market in which to experiment, but you're quintessentially international and outward looking.
Yeah, that's the only way to make your business a real success, I think.
Yeah, really interesting. What's next for Tictail then? And you have to go international. How do you do that? How do you practically go about taking your service, encouraging people? There's a lot of competition in the e-commerce space now.
Yeah,
so
of course.
How are you going to do it?
So I always think that for a product or company like Tictail, the real hero is the product. I mean, we can do PR, we can do bought advertising, we can do collaborations, but at the end of the day it's about creating a great product that people love and that they share with their friends. And that's where we spend our money and that's where we spend our time. So looking at Tictail so far, that's where our growth has come from. 81% of our users, our last survey shows, have recommended Tictail to someone else. Almost every store that comes onto our platform will recommend Tictail to someone else. And the way we grow today is essentially we become big in one cluster in one country and it just spreads from that. It's like a grassroots movement.
So where are your biggest clusters right now?
So Sweden is obviously still one, although it's decreasing by the week. Big clusters in Europe for us are UK, Germany, France, and in fact Denmark also. And then of course it's the US that's growing really nicely as well now.
And how do you internationalize the language on the sites? Do you do what Facebook does and leave it to your users to do, or do you just have a very skilled international team that does it for you?
So we're a very small team. We're 15 people now. And the way I look at it is that our ambition, our mission with Tictail is to become the world's most used and loved e-commerce platform. So it's a pretty grand ambition, right? But you have to start somewhere. And although I think complete localization of our platform is definitely on the agenda, the first step we're taking now is that we essentially translate the store front to any given language, to all the languages in all the markets that are crucial to us, all our key markets. So that for a consumer, the consumer experience of Tictail will be completely local, although we keep the dashboard and the core product in the English language, just to maintain high development speed.
And what can we expect next from Tictail? Is there anything you're launching in the next few weeks?
Yeah, of course. We're quite excited. So we've been around for a year, a bit more since our first launch, and it's been a fantastic year. We've found a product market fit. We really feel that we're in a space that we're excited to be in. And I think what we're doing now is that we're taking the biggest step since our launch, which is that we're opening up Tictail. We're taking all of the tools that we use to build Tictail and we're giving them out to third-party developers. And we're enabling them to build any application, any addition, any extra feature on top of Tictail, essentially building a Tictail on top of Tictail. Yeah. To be compared to maybe apps on the iPhone. And our ambition is to create a completely new ecosystem for e-commerce and developers.
And how do you monetize that?
So essentially, we are a platform and we serve thousands and thousands of merchants. And these merchants, they want add-ons, they want additional capabilities to their stores. And by being a third-party developer and creating one of these features for Tictail, you can resell them. You can resell that application to all of our merchants. And we then take a 30% commission on the applications, but the developers get the majority of the take.
Oh, very interesting, very interesting. So, yeah, you're going to be the next operating system for e-commerce.
We think of it, the infrastructure of e-commerce is a good way to put it.
Very interesting. I've looked at the site and I've even set one up, and I have to say it's a pretty impressive product. So maybe you will achieve your global ambition. But really interesting. Thanks very much, Carl.
Thank you so much for your time, Jemima.